Laura, the candidates are now in full campaign mode ahead of this election later on in April. It feels like the question of the day of the campaign really is how to deal with Donald Trump and the U.S., and that's sucking up all the oxygen to the exclusion of all the other issues.
That's absolutely right. And really the reason for that is Donald Trump's threats against Canada's economy and sovereignty affect everything else in the political sphere. So, you know, before Donald Trump was elected and before he started ramping up his 51st state rhetoric, the biggest issue in Canada, much like the U.S., was affordability and inflation, housing prices, taxes. These remain very, very top of mind for voters. But if Trump enacts sweeping across the board 25% tariffs on all Canadian imports to the U.S., you know, that could push the country into a recession, or it very well will push the country into a recession, I should be clear, if they persist. And that would mean lost jobs, you know, affordability issues, and given that Canada plans to put retaliatory tariffs in place, that would drive up inflation as well. And sorry, we already have put in some retaliatory tariffs, I should add. So Donald Trump's rhetoric absolutely shapes everything in Canadians' lives. And on top of those affordability issues, those bread and butter issues, his threats to turn Canada into the 51st state have been treated with more and more seriousness by Canadians and our politicians, as you see in that campaign ad. You know, Justin Trudeau, before he left, said Trump's intention was to crush Canada's economy to turn it into the 51st state. We've seen Mark Carney continue that rhetoric since taking over as Liberal leader, and it's a sentiment shared by the Conservative leader, Poilievre. So this is something that is dominating the entire race, and it's really dominating Canadians' very perception of their country and their livelihoods right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Poilievre is an accomplished politician. He's been voted to office before Mark Carney. This is kind of his first turn in the political spotlight. What are his specific strengths, or as voters perceive them, what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses?
That's right. You know, before Donald Trump's election and since the 51st state rhetoric, Pierre Poilievre was way ahead in the polls, you know, as much as 27 points ahead of Trudeau's Liberals in the polls. Justin Trudeau's resignation and the increased 51st state rhetoric have changed everything. Now they're neck and neck. And that's because Poilievre's strengths really were those sort of bread and butter affordability issues. They were taxes, inflation, housing prices, you know, kind of informing Canadians or trying to tie Justin Trudeau's policies to those affordability issues. And now that we have this existential threat coming from the U.S. looming over everything, the ballot box question has shifted. And so Canadians are really trying to weigh Carney against Poilievre and think who would be best to negotiate with Donald Trump.
Right.
So it's a tough one because, you know, Canadians are very concerned about housing prices and inflation, don't get me wrong. But as I said, if Donald Trump enacts his threats to their full extent, that just really impacts the economy in a much, much deeper way.